Welcome to In Other Words, the UCLA Tarjan Center's Plain Language podcast, where we interview our speakers from the Distinguished Lecture Series. I am Holly Oliver, the Disability Rights Advocate at the UCLA Tarjan Center, and I will be your host for this episode. For more information, please visit our website, tarjancenter.org. It is spelled Tarjan center.org. Dr. Ifunanya Nweke is the founder and executive director of Jazz Hands for Autism. This nonprofit provides music education for autistic individuals and training for educators. Dr. Nweke earned a bachelor's in anthropology from UCLA, a master's in nonprofit leadership and management from USC, and a doctorate in educational leadership from USC. Dr. Nweke is also the co-chair of the Curriculum and Subcommittee within the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force at USC Sol Price School of Public Policy. She is also the author of the self-help book, 20 Plus Lessons from My 20s. Before we start, thank you so much, Dr. Nweke, for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm very, very excited.
Throughout my studies, there were no targeted music programs to help students with disabilities. I think it's wonderful that your research and work are focused on making music more accessible by teaching the teachers. Some of my music teachers did not accept or understand the challenges that neurodiverse students face. We all want to learn more about this important topic.
I'm happy to share.
Why did you decide to develop Jazz Hands for Autism?
You know, Holly, that's a great question. And I've been working for the last 12 years on how to summarize the answer to that question. So I'm going to try again today. I am a singer-songwriter myself. So I firsthand know the power of music. And when I met an individual who was on the autism spectrum that was a musician as well, and I saw how powerful music was as it related to helping him interact with, build bridges with, lead his classmates, I decided that there should be a place where musicians who are autistic are able to not just learn and grow in their musicality and their musicianship, but also have access to opportunities where they can put that into practice in community settings. So one, learn music, get supported by teachers who know how to teach music to you, and then after you've learned the skills, now help you find work outside of the organization, where in your community, where you can actually be performing or teaching music or what so have you. So long story short, what led me to create Jazz Hands is I saw firsthand the power of music to build bridges when I was working as a behavior interventionist. And because I'm a singer-songwriter myself, that was doubly amplified, and I could not unsee that. So I decided to do something about it, and now here we are 12 years later.
I had no idea. It's not that surprising, given I was the only neurodiverse student in my music classes in high school and college.
I can imagine. And you know what's interesting? So the individual Ruben who inspired the organization, he was the only person who was neurodivergent in his class. So I met him when he was, I believe, in 7th grade, and so he had various different classes. So he had homeroom, he had all the different classes that a student at that age would have, but then he had music class, right? Whereas his other classmates were neurotypical, Ruben was neurodivergent, and he, generally speaking, was off to the corner, learning with his behavior interventionist and, quote unquote, managing his behaviors, quote unquote, right? But when he got to music class, that was the first place that I saw him really light up and be able to communicate and say, oh, he got on the piano, started playing a song, and his other classmates who were neurotypical followed along. And so that's what led me to start Jazz and to seeing that powerful moment. Your experience as being the only neurodivergent person in your class is a experience that many neurodivergent individuals have. And my goal is to, especially through our teacher training program, is to reduce that gap. So for instance, even if you are the only person who is neurodivergent in your class, you shouldn't feel like you are so distant from your other classmates who may not be neurodivergent.
So true. And I thought that was really nice sharing that. Thank you so much. So according to your research, What is the important difference between listening to music and playing music or performing music for students on the autism spectrum?
So, great question, right? There are several different elements that differentiate the two. Listening to music, of course, is therapeutic. There are many studies that show that it helps with anxiety, it helps you navigate challenging emotions. However, there's something that happens when you perform music on stage, and it doesn't just start when you step on stage. It starts with the preparation leading to the performance. So the preparation, one, helps the individual build resilience. So if it's a solo performance, they're building resilience. They're overcoming the challenges of, oh, I have to practice, and I'm okay. After I practice, I have to, I have to organize my set list. I have to do all these various elements and these very oftentimes difficult tasks to get to the point of even getting on stage. And then when you are on stage, performing music requires you to tap into various different skills. So there's executive functioning skills, there's memorization, there is like sequential knowledge, knowing what comes first, what comes next. These are all very, very complex skills that a person gets a chance to practice and display when they're preparing for and then performing music. So I think listening to music can be very therapeutic, but performing music can help build resilience and build various different skills and help a person display those skills in a very short amount of time, like 5 minutes, as opposed to over several months.
I think that's very insightful. I think it'll be beneficial for students because they can carry these skills for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the skills that a person learns when preparing for and performing on stage are skills that are very transferable. For instance, something that my research also showed was over time, after performing several times, at least one of the musicians was able to expand his horizons when it came to the kind of music that he enjoyed listening to or playing, right? So even the process of performing with other people helped him develop skills that now he takes into other different settings. So earlier I mentioned, performing solo helps you develop individual resilience. Now preparing to and performing with a group helps you develop collective resilience. So overcoming challenges, not just on your own, but with other people, also helps then build that, like I said, that collective resilience, which leads to belonging, which is part of what I found in my research. So performing music doesn't only help the individual build resilience in themselves, it doesn't only help them build and be able to display skills, it also helps them to feel belonging because they have collectively overcome challenges with other people, and that leads to authentic friendships as well. To summarize, a difference between listening to music and performing music is one, overcoming challenges on your own, overcoming challenges with a group, that then leads to collective resilience, that then leads to belonging, and then leads to making authentic friendships. And then when you get on stage, then you're able to then display various different skills, like I said, memorization, sequential knowledge, and then all those skills are then transferable to other settings.
What is the resilience revolution and how does this help?
The resilience revolution is I've described all this first from the perspective of the individual that is performing on stage. Now the other part of the revolution is what happens when other people watch them display that resilience, especially their parents or their caregivers, who for many individuals who are on the autism spectrum, parents and or caregivers are individuals that are helping them navigate services and supports for most of their life, right? And so, what those caregivers and parents and guardians, how capable they see their loved one or their child, is very important to how many, like, kind of the scope of services that is made available to that individual over their lifespan. So, part of the resilience revolution is what happens when their guardians, their loved ones, see them displaying that resilience, and that then leads to more advocacy on the part of the parent or the guardian, and that then opens up more opportunities along the lifespan for the individual. So the equation that I'm trying to simplify or illustrate here is how music performance leads to more opportunities over the lifespan for the individual by one, helping the individual develop resilience, two, helping them display that resilience, three, helping their loved ones see that resilience, and then four, the loved ones then advocate on the behalf of the person who is neurodivergent. They advocate for more services along the lifespan, which leads to more opportunities. That's essentially a summary of my research and what I'm trying to put forth. And that's what I believe the resilience revolution is.
So true. I don't like when people said they can't do it when really they can.
I agree. Many times the distance between where our musicians are and where they want to be is not inability, it's just confidence in their abilities. We train our educators to know that not only are you teaching the technical skill, but you are also acting as a coach and a cheerleader alongside the individual so that they know that they can um, access a new skill, grow in that new skill, and ultimately share that new skill with their community. Going back to what you said, it's not that you can't do it. It's just that do you have the support that you need to actually do it? And that's a big reason why training educators is super duper important. Educators that can teach neurodivergent individuals, that's super important for helping them be able to get to their goals.
What is the JET or Jazz Hands Educator Training Program?
Jazz Hands Educator Training, JHET, JET. Um, the whole purpose of that program is to provide music educators, arts practitioners, so it can even be social workers with tangible tools and understanding and pedagogical approaches that they can then utilize to include and engage their neurodivergent client, student, uh, in a musical setting or in an arts-based setting. And by doing so, help them tap into new skills that they can then display, and then that can ultimately result in that resilience revolution that I'm talking about. So the JET program is a really strong vehicle that, and a very tangible vehicle that Jazz Hands is using to move towards that resilience revolution, not just within the Jazz Hands studio in Culver City, but beyond the walls of our studio in school districts, with different community organizations, etc. The Jazz Hands Educator Training Program is in place to be able to equip music teachers, music educators, arts educators, other kind of practitioners who utilize music and arts. Is to equip them with the skills, the knowledge, and tools and approaches that they can use to include and engage their neurodivergent students and clients in music-based or arts-based interventions that can help lead to more opportunities along the lifespan for that individual.
I wish more teachers could learn this.
I may not be giving too much detail, but essentially, within the JET training, our educators are learning cognitive theory. So, things like constructivist Piaget's constructivist theory. What is that, and how does that show up and manifest in their teaching practice? They're learning things about how to design their classroom to be more amenable and more accommodating for individuals who may have different sensory or learning needs. They're learning how to utilize different concepts to teach musical knowledge. So, for example, how to scaffold and break down concepts, make different concepts more accessible to different individuals that have different learning styles or different support needs. So we teach all of these various things. We also have our curriculum at Jazz Hands. We have assessments that we've built that tie to the curriculum that, in addition to the pedagogical approaches that the JET program offers, really provides a holistic set of tools that educators can utilize to be able to once again include and engage their neurodivergent students in arts and music-based learning.
Why is JET different from other music training programs? And how do we know it works?
Well, this is a great question. So, how is JET different? So, I would say it's different in a couple of ways. So, there are very many, it comes a dime a dozen professional development trainings that teachers receive, right? But many of these PDs or professional development trainings are not designed for music educators. And if they are, they're not designed for music educators and in training them how to work with a growing population, which is neurodivergent individuals. I can't tell you the number of times I've had music educators tell me, wow, this is so helpful because, we get all these PDs every year, but these PDs are not designed for us meaning the music educators, specifically those who are looking to include more neurodivergent students in their classroom. So that's one way that I would say there's a difference or is differentiated from other trainings, is that, we are focusing on music educators or arts educators as it relates to inclusion for neurodivergent individuals. Another way that it differentiates is that we incorporate a lot of various different evidence-based practices, things like universal design for learning, socio-emotional learning, and also applied behavior analysis. I know that there's questions and ABA, or applied behavior analysis. There's some people are for it, some people are against it, some people are neutral about it. There are ways that we've taken elements of ABA, combined them with UDL, aka Universal Design for Learning, and have them package that all to work with individuals who are neurodivergent as it relates to a musical setting. So there are many UDL trainings, there are many ABA trainings, there are many SEL trainings, but many of those do not equip or prepare a music or arts educator to work with their students in the arts class. So there are very many things that differentiate JET from other trainings. Another thing that I also mentioned is that it's a four-tier training, right? So tier one is more of an overview that, it's more high level, whereas tier two is more in depth. That's where we're teaching you all those different theoretical foundations. We're teaching you classroom management skills, and pedagogical approaches. That's where the bulk of it happens, is in our second tier, aka JET 2. And with that also comes fidelity observation. So we're actually, not only are we teaching you and sharing the information, but we're also going to be observing, how are you implementing what we're sharing in your classroom? And then we can give you feedback. And then you also get to shadow a JET certified educator as well. So not only are we providing you with the information, we're ensuring that it's being concretized and stabilized within you as an educator. So, you watching somebody else do what you're learning, and then you doing what you're learning, and then we observing you and giving you feedback as well. And how do we know it works? I think one way that you can see the effectiveness of the JET training is just by looking at the results that Jazz has had over the last 12 years. While the JET program, we've just most very recently kind of concretized it into a series of modules. We've been doing this for the last 12 years. And, we learn something, we implement it in the classroom with our students. We get some feedback from the students. Oh, and the instructors, okay, this works, this doesn't work. Then we go and say, okay, how can we build on what works, and how can we minimize what doesn't work? And so it's a consistently iterative process. For instance, just before I got on this podcast, I was in our weekly instructional support meetings, and that's where a lot of the feedback happens. Our instructors come in, our educators come into our weekly meetings. They say, okay, I tried this, I implemented A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is what worked. These are some notable moments. And then we also have open forum where they can actually say, okay, these things are not working, and how can we make sure that this works in the future for more students? So that's another reason why the JET training works, I would say, is because it's consistently being iterated upon. We don't think we know everything. We don't think we have all the answers, but what we do have is a commitment to consistently improving what we know and making sure it's always on the forefront of the best practices and the best technology, so that we can support neurodivergent musicians and artists as along their journeys.
That is very impressive.
Thank you. We're doing our best.
How do you plan to help the greatest number of students over time?
This is a great question. And it's one that I struggled with for many years. It's no secret I'm a very ambitious person. And, this is something that I'm very deeply passionate about. You can ask my friends, my family, my staff. I eat, sleep, drink, wake up, run, whatever it is, jazz hands and accessible arts education, specifically music education. So this is my bread and butter. This is the hill that I plan to die on, right? For many years I wondered, okay, jazz hands, currently we serve approximately 50 students per year through our studio, right? We serve that's the amount that we have, sometimes more, sometimes less. But the prevalence of autism and neurodiversity is increasing, and very rapidly, not just here in the US, but globally. So what has kept me up at night for many years is, okay, I see what we're doing, and we're doing great work here at Jazz Hands, but it's not enough. At least for me, it's just not enough. We're just merely scratching the surface. If we're serving about 50 students per year, and there are millions of individuals who are neurodivergent, those numbers to me just I don't like those odds, right?
Yeah.
What I believe is the solution to that is the JET program, right? So Jazz Hands, we're limited by the space that we have, by our admin overhead, all these things that, running an organization comes with. But what there is no shortage of is educators who are looking for this training, educators who have individuals in their classroom that are neurodivergent that they want to serve, but they may not know how best to navigate that. And so the way that I believe that I found that will help make a notable dent in that increasing prevalence of autism and neurodiversity is by training educators and training those who work with, support, and coach individuals who are neurodivergent, by training them and making sure that they have the skills, they have the knowledge to be able to support the individuals who are neurodivergent. That's the way that we make a real dent, right? That's the way that we actually create systemic change for individuals who are neurodivergent, is by ensuring that the people around them have the tools to properly work with them, encourage them, support them along their journeys. And that's the whole purpose of the JET program. That's the purpose of Jazz Hands. That's the purpose of my research. All of it points us to the same direction, which is increasing the impact and making sure that it's sustainable and that it's systemic.
I believe this will help a lot of people.
That's my prayer. We're always improving upon what we know. I think that the saying is, when you know better, you do better. So as we know better and learn better, we're also going to be passing that along to our educators that are JET certified. So as we learn some new things at the Jazz Hand Studio and say, oh, actually, this works better than this thing, we'll then send that out to those who are certified in JET and say, hey, new information coming down the pipeline. You want to get this, and you want to try this out in your classroom. So it's not a one and done for the JET certification. It's just the beginning. And we hope that, once again, as we know better and we do better, that we share better, and that those who are receiving training from us also do better as well.
What are the next steps individuals may take if they're interested in learning more?
So I would say, our website, JET is a newer program, so you may not see it on our website just yet. We're still building out that language to make sure
I
for,
see.
for the public face. But what I will say is, just visit our website and just click our contact us tab and fill out our form, and just say that you're interested in the JET program, and we'll make sure that we add you to the list and that we follow up with you and we get you the information that you're seeking. So yeah, I would say, a long story short, while the information may not fully be on our website just yet because we're still preparing to fully launch the JET program, you can just contact us and we'll get back to you as soon as we can with more information on how to continue on with the JET program.
Thank you. You taught us that music performance can be an untapped tool. It helps students to develop resilience, courage, and social connection on stage. You said it doesn't change a moment, it changes what they believe is possible. Belief determines access, and access determines outcomes. Thanks again, and see you all next time.
Thank you very much.